meeting of the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Snoblin?
Here.
Mr. Edson?
Here.
Mr. Block?
Here.
Mr. Scribner?
Here.
Gary? Mrs. Golan?
Here. Thank you very much. We did have an executive session before this meeting, as we usually do, but no action was taken. All right. Under my president's report tonight, just a few words. A decade ago, a high school strategic planning session identified, among other things, the need to expand and update the high school facility. 4 years later, after careful study and discussion, the voters were asked to support a $54 million referendum to cover the costs of the many replacements, repairs, and renovations that had been identified. Now, almost 7 years later, this board is involved in the ongoing oversight of the school's infrastructure, and with the help of our staff, has identified areas which are now in need of repair or replacement as equipment comes to the end of its useful life. We must also find ways to pay for these repairs, and have talked to our financial advisors to find the best way and the best time to go forth with these projects. This is how we do business. We follow a careful process in open session that balances the needs of our students and the needs of our facilities, while being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. 2 years ago, the Board of Education was asked by some members of the Booster Club to partner with the Diamond Anniversary Campaign in a large, complex project that included 2 artificial turf fields and a new track for East Campus. This board holds our parent organizations, such as the Boosters, Applause, PALS, the Foundation, and the APT in high regard. We are proud and appreciative of the time and of the financial commitments our parents provide to serve our students, our faculty, and our school. We worked with the Diamond Anniversary Campaign for many months, hoping for a successful joint venture. In the end, the Board of Education will have had to borrow $2.6 million to get the project started. With so many unknowns in our financial future, the board was not comfortable borrowing that amount of money for our fields at that time. Therefore, last summer, we and the Diamond Campaign Board regretfully discontinued discussions regarding this comprehensive project, and the Diamond Anniversary Board ended their fundraising campaign. There was disappointment on both sides. As we discussed at our last board meeting, there are currently several areas of structural concern that need to be addressed. 10-year-old boilers, chillers, air handling units for the pool, in addition to the outdated track, all of which are due or overdue to be replaced. Tonight, we need to move forward with these facilities infrastructure discussions. But before we do, I would like to underscore that we place great value in our continuing relationship with the Booster Club. We are very appreciative of the time commitment of their volunteers and of the financial contributions which support programs for the health and wellness for all students. The Booster Club's mission to promote and support athletic success, spirit, and sportsmanship in every sport and for every student athlete is vital to Lake Forest High School. For that, we are grateful and we thank them. Thank you. And that ends the President's report. Mr. Simic, the Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mrs. Golan. I'm going to hand off initially to Mr. Hoffman for some good news.
Well, since our last time, we have put the first semester to bed and have started the second semester. One of the things that comes with the second semester is a look towards next year. So our class of 2018 is on our horizon. Have registered. Our counselors have gone to all the schools themselves and registered the students with their parents face-to-face. Country Day and St. Mary's came over to our place and did the same thing with our counselors. So all our 8th grade to be freshmen are in the bank, and we've started our registration process for everyone else. It's also been kind of a busy time to wrap up winter season activities and sports. We have a girls gymnastics team, which won our conference and also won the regional, was second in the sectional, and it will be at the state tournament this weekend. The whole team made it to state, which is a great accomplishment. Our boys swimming won the conference meet, and they are headed towards their sectional this weekend. Our POMs took second in the first ever pom-pom IHSA sport. It was a rising sport last year, became an official sport this year, and the first ever POM tournament was held in, IHSA held that, and we finished second. That next week we went to Orlando for the Nationals, the UDA, Universal Dance Academy, I believe it is, Nationals, and we finished first. And so our POMs are national champs. So that's kind of nice. We also had our music honors competition, in which we voice and piano percussion, string division, wind division, and our overall winner was Anna Naranja, and she did wonderful piano, just wonderful. And so that's great. And our drama department has been busy. We had our winter play, Arsenic and Old Lace, and that finished up last weekend. That was very successful. And they also went as a group to Theater Fest, which is kind of like a professional development for students in theater, from tech crew to actors, and that was held in Bloomington. And kind of all the high schools invade this kind of professional development for theater kids. And we had our very own Ben Davidson, who presented at the Theater Fest this year in his tech and sound delivery. So really been a great winter, and we're heading towards the end of the third quarter already. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoffman. And if I have the date correct, March 6th through 9 is the talent show. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. And talent show auditions were held, and practices have already started.
Okay, and this is something new for me. I have heard any number of people say absolutely have to go buy your tickets early. It's amazing, and I see one of our proud dads in the audience here too. It's great to see. Also, I'd like to call Mr. Sullivan to the microphone to talk about a really amazing experience that we had just a couple weeks ago at the high school.
Yes, we had the we had the opportunity to host 25 science teachers from Beijing, and they visited our school. They visited our school and the schools at District 67. We did have some glitches on the front end. We didn't get a lot of information about how many were coming to each school. And I had to get volunteers from the science teachers who would open their classrooms to them. And they said how many would be coming into my class. And I said between 1 and 25, because it was going to be the high school teachers going to the high school and the middle school going to the middle school. So I still got a number of volunteers. We ended up splitting them in half, which made a lot of sense. But we had them come and observe Chem Honors, Environmental Geoscience, Bio 1 CP, Chem 1 CP, Physics 1 CP, Chem AP, Advanced Environmental Geo Honors, Physics AP-B, Bio AP, Anatomy and Physiology. And during that time, they saw some things that really got they had a very strong wow factor. One of the things that they did, the bio teachers went and visited the anatomy class where they had a lab with using foundation grant for to purchase a human skeleton, so we were using that in the lab. They saw demos in chemistry where methane-filled soap bubbles were lit on fire, and it was very dramatic. And in environmental AP, they took tar sands and turned it into fuel. So the one thing that they said again and again was that some of them said they'd love to teach here because students got to actually do things, not just listen to us talk. And they were very excited. The students found them to be really engaging, and one thing that I learned, I was going through classes saying, okay, who has Mandarin? And I would try to pick somebody out that could talk to them, that could speak to them. And in one of the chemistry classes, I followed up with the student, so did you talk to the folks? And she said, oh yeah, and she's a native speaker, but she said there were 5 or 6 others that did, so there was one in each lab group that had a non-native speaker who was taking enough Mandarin to have a conversation with them. They were very impressed with that. Not only that, I'd never been a tour guide before, and it took a long time to get them from point A to point B, and it really took a long time because wherever we went, students would come up and just start talking to them in Mandarin. And, you know, we didn't get anywhere. So that was a wonderful problem to have. I had to cut things short, but that was fine. But the takeaway was the kids. They were not shy at all, and the folks from China were so impressed with how mature they were and the kinds of things they were learning, and how personable really our students were. So they really did us proud. We're trying to now we're trying to form other partnerships. Right now we have a partnership with Michigan State, but to be able to bring in teachers of Mandarin, because our program's only going to grow. So we're looking at local colleges and having them partner with us and with some schools in China. So it was an incredible experience, but the biggest takeaway was how impressed they were with our kids. Oh, when I found out at the front end, at the back end, that this was their 19th day in the country. They had gone to the University of Oregon. They've seen 3 other high school districts, and they were extremely underwhelmed until they got to our school, where they were extremely impressed. They were over the top. So it was a great experience for our students, for our faculty, and you know, really for our whole district and country, I guess. So it was wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, and compliments to Mr. Sullivan. This was from the organizer of the trip, a very picky group of Chinese teachers, and said that they left really, really happy, and he hadn't seen them happy in other places. And so you really did a great job organizing. It represented us incredibly well. I know it took a lot of work, and I know it cost some sleep too, because of excitement and other things, but really, really well done, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And the third point of pride in recent activities with our students, Board Member Edson was at the CBO this past Sunday with Mr. Hoffman, and if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Edson.
Yes, a little bit about College-Bound Opportunities. This is a really interesting and wonderful organization founded about 7 years ago to help kids who come from families that may not be able to send their kids to college. In most cases, most of these students don't have anyone in their family who's ever been to college. Started in Highland Park and Deerfield, and 2 years ago expanded to Lake Forest. And Sunday afternoon, Jay was able to present to 5 students from the high school a welcome to the CBO program. These are juniors who will be paired with mentors. The mentors will help them prepare for, select, and pay for college, find them grants, etc., and stay with them all the way through their college career. So there's 6-year commitment from the mentors. It's a really, all volunteers, really a wonderful program. Small annual scholarship, but it really isn't about the funding as much as the navigation, working in conjunction with our own advisors here internally. Not only that, but then after they leave college, there's a job coach that helps them select a career and get going in the real world. So it's really exciting to see that happen. So Jay, thanks so much for coming.
And thank you, Mr. Edson, for that really inspiring work. And finally, there is a tri-district meeting of all 3 districts, District 65 and District 67 and 115. All staff, teachers will meet this coming Friday for a day-long professional development. Will take place beginning at the RMA at our high school. One of the things that is easily overlooked, and particularly if it goes unsaid, is the close cooperation that we have with our neighbors to the north. Jean Sophie, their new superintendent, has been a terrific partner for us on any number of things, and this is just one more undertaking together that we look forward to pulling off this Friday. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simic. Now it is time for public participation. If anyone would like to address the board, I would ask this evening that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and wait until you're identified by the chair. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Yes, Mrs. Thorner.
I'm Nancy Thorner, and I'm a citizen and a taxpayer from Lake Bluff. I'd like to read just a very small portion of a letter that I received on February the 2nd. I have no idea where the letter came from because it came in an unmarked envelope, but I will share the complete letter with all the board members and the superintendent after I'm finished. It starts, this was received on February the 2nd. Dear Mrs. Thorner, I was appalled as I read Lake Forest District 115 board member Bergner's letter to the editor, printed on patch on January the 18th. It was letter to the editor, Lake Forest High School school board member criticizes patch story. Now, it is particularly disgusting that he has chosen to attack you personally because you have taken the initiative to find out what really is going on. Now, I might say for myself that I didn't appreciate that my comments were called foolish and misinformed ranting in front of the school board. Now, the fan letter continues. I just wanted to let you know that there are people in this community who appreciate your efforts and are not happy with somebody like Mr. Bergner attacking you or your credibility. Thank you for all you do for our community. Keep up your good work. I have received other letters and many phone calls telling me that I should remain diligent in my efforts and not be coward into giving up my mission, which is to bring transparency when I think it's called for, and others do too, to taxpayers here in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Thorner.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to, you can, if you would like to leave a copy of that with our, oh, that's fine. Yes, sir. My name is Carl Lamprey. All right, you'll have to approach the podium and speak into the microphone.
I was a little bit surprised that this meeting composed a little bit of something about what's migrating from Highland Park to here, volunteers. These volunteers are very effective in education. In fact, teachers who behave as volunteers are also quite excellent. And that proves itself. I don't measure the school by its top students. Abraham Lincoln had 1 year of formal education, and he was President of the United States in a very critical time. Thomas Edison ran a research lab, a significant one, 3 years of formal education. These are what we would call top students. I measure a school by its poor students, why they didn't get up, why they didn't grow. There is a teacher, there's a DVD in Highland Park Library, maybe it's here also, but anyway, you can get it, about a teacher called Dick Clark. He was rather effective. He took a poor school in Harlem, New York City, and had one of the worst classes, and he brought it up to the top class. That's what I call effective teaching. Now, one of the things that's always a puzzle is you see duplication. That's not necessary. There's a lady taking notes. You have another lady taking notes. Both of them on the payroll of the school district. We have the same thing in Highland Park. They just copied you people just recently. And I find it rather poor because the investment is in teachers, not in administration. You go to a doctor's office and you know what the administrator is. It's not the most important person. It's the teacher. Sometimes teachers are promoted above their positions. For example, the governor's salary is $177,000. The regional head of Lake County Schools has a salary of $120,000. That's 46 districts to my memory. Highland Park is a tiny district. Lake Forest is a tiny district. By government standards, organizations that have less than 500 employees are considered a small business. And you have a huge bureaucracy for a tiny business. The illusion is that students are part of the administration. They are not. I mean, a grocery store has thousands of people coming to it. And I think we should recognize this. And anyway, I like the idea of using volunteers. They don't cost the taxpayers money, and they're very effective. They work outside the normal school time, and they bring a student up. I have 2 Mexican sisters, and they're rather effective. They went to South Africa with my father. They didn't know English. They didn't know Afrikaans. In the school they went to, the entire language was in German, every class. They learned all 3 languages in 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say here in Lake Forest, as I'm sure you are in Highland Park, we're very proud of our volunteers as well. Whoever's taking notes out there, not getting paid for it, so keep writing, but you know. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, moving on then. We have our first report, and that is the FRN conference. Mr. Simic?
And Mrs. Snoblin is going to begin this, and I might comment after.
I welcome your interjections whenever you see fit. When Mr. Simic first came here, one of the things that we asked of him was to help us develop as a board. And he jumped right in, and one of the things he really wanted us to do was to participate in the FRN conference, which is held every year in Washington, D.C. So I was fortunate to be chosen from this board, and one of the District 67 board members went as well. The FRN is the Federal Relations Network of the National School Boards Association, and the conference was held at the end of January. The purpose of the conference is to allow us to interact with the National School Board Association, which is our national organization. It represents 90,000 school board members across the country and 6,000 in Illinois. Like most districts in Illinois, we're a member of the Illinois Association of School Boards, and then by connection, we're also members of the NSBA. The NSBA is our primary advocacy group for ensuring that the interests of public schools are heard in Washington. You know, there's a lot of other stuff going on in Washington, and we want to make sure schools stay on the radar as well. Some of the NSBA's key issues include lobbying to retain local control of public education, which I'll tell you a little more about as we go on, and ensuring that education's not forgotten when we're hearing so much about the federal budget. Mr. Simic has been an active participant in this conference for several years, and he pointed to this as a good way for us to raise our profile among our legislators, so that they would come to think of us as a district that's really engaged, and where if they want to know what the impact of federal legislation is going to be, why not ask us? And I have to tell you that seeing Mike in action at this conference was extremely impressive. He's very well connected, and many people commented on how knowledgeable he was, so it was great to have him there. It was a really good opportunity for us to learn about national issues that affect our district, but also an opportunity to talk to other school board members from all across the country to discuss best practices. Even though there are a lot of differences among states in how school boards operate, and a lot of differences, of course, even locally, there's a lot in common as well, and that was an extremely valuable experience. We also spent the day on Capitol Hill, in theory, to meet with our congressmen and women. They unfortunately were in the district at that time, but we did meet with their staffs, which is important because if we do contact our legislators about an issue, chances are it's the staff member we'll be talking to. So this was the schedule. Just wanted to show that to you because there was a whole lot of stuff going on. There was a great deal of activity from early in the morning until late in the evenings, and a lot of really great educational sessions. There were 3 main topic areas that we were focused on in terms of legislation, and those are the first one was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We all know of the No Child Left Behind, but that was actually the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. No Child Left Behind has a lot of problems. We know that, and we've been talking about them for a long time. instead of being actually readdressed by Congress, it's just been extended annually, and so despite the flaws that are known to exist, it's just moved forward. It doesn't measure student progress. It's punitive. It punishes districts when students don't meet their annual yearly progress. It doesn't recognize student improvement. It focuses more on reaching a set goal, which is not necessarily feasible for all students. For that reason, by 2014, I understand that no high schools in Illinois will actually meet the standards of No Child Left Behind, because in 2014, 100% of students in the school would be required to meet the exact same criteria as though they were all identical people. So the National School Board Association supports reauthorization, but using evidence-based improvement models and fewer federal mandates. Another issue that we were there to talk about and learn about was federal education funding. The first piece of that is sequestration, which we've all heard an awful lot about. You know, fortunately, the January deadline was postponed. Now it's coming up in March. If nothing is done, there would be, at this point, across-the-board cuts of 5.9%, which would affect education just like so many other federal functions. In particular, it would threaten funding for special ed, for the disadvantaged, and then impact aid, which directly affects us as a school district to the north, in North Chicago, is dependent on impact aid. IDEA is the special ed funding from the federal government. When it was first put in place, the federal government promised that they would fund 40% of special education. They have never done so. Currently, they fund about 18%. So in our two districts, District 115 and 67, the shortfall over the last 5 years totals about $12 million. So this is pretty significant money, even in a small district like this, that we are not getting from the federal government and should be. The National School Board Association is asking for full funding of IDEA and also wants Congress to take responsibility for setting funding priorities. That's in contrast to delegating or allowing control of that process to be taken over by the Department of Education. And there you see a very nice picture of Mike and me and Bill Anderson from District 67 standing outside of Senator Durbin's office. Okay, a big issue for the NSBA, and I think for us as well, and for our community, and for many of the communities in our area, it has to do with local control. Local school boards develop policies, set priorities, and provide accountability. That's our job. That's what we're here for. School board members are directly elected. You guys chose us to sit in this position because it's important to have local people who understand local issues making the decisions for our schools and our students. We represent the local community in determining how our children are educated, and I believe our board thinks, and NSBA thinks, that that local control is really important. Things have been changing quite a bit because of the way the Department of Education has been operating recently, and there you see Arnie Duncan, who's the director of the Department of Education, who spoke to us at this meeting. A lot of regulations and grant conditions have been put in place, some of which are beyond the intent of the federal legislation that authorizes them. Mike can probably speak to us with some more specific details on that. These regulations cost staff time and tax dollars, and Mike spoke very well in some of our sessions about that. So the NSBA has introduced a bill that would protect local school district governments. It would help to ensure that we are able to keep some local control in the face of increasing federal regulations. So a lot of times I think we in this district are very focused on the numbers. We're very focused on finances. We're very focused on transparency. And these things are really important because without them we couldn't do what we're supposed to do. But it's easy to lose sight of the fact that what we really do is education. And this whole conference was about education at a high level, not what happens in the classroom, but more on a philosophical level. how do communities decide how to educate their children? What is important to our local community? Who should be funding this? Should it be local taxpayers, the state, the federal government, some balance thereof? So I wanted to kind of summarize some of the things that we learned, and Bill and I compared notes on this and put together what we thought were the most striking facts from all of the different speakers who talked to us during this time. One is that public education as a whole is not broken. We hear often that it is, but the numbers don't support that. In international tests, the U.S. ranks 5th in math, and it's gaining 4th in science and top in civics. So despite the fact that there are many problems in public education across the country, overall as a system, it is not failing. There is an achievement gap between well-to-do students and students in need. Both groups of students are improving, but the gap between them remains about the same. That has more to do with background and environment than actually about the schools. The schools can't solve the larger economic problems that lead to poor performance in school. You know, if we could, we would, but we're not able to. One thing I want to mention too, on the final day of our visit, we went to visit the Finnish embassy to talk about education. Mike had scheduled this in advance for us. Finland is well known to have an extremely effective educational system, and it was a really interesting interview, but the depressing part about it was realizing that it's based on a structure that's entirely different from ours. The students, no matter what their home situation, and the woman we spoke to at the embassy emphasized that Finland is not paradise. You know, there are difficult home situations there, but school is a place where everyone has equal opportunity. We don't have that in this country, and no local school district can fix that. It's a much bigger issue. So just a totally different approach. One solution a lot of people are seeking is charter schools. Now that we've got, I think, probably 20 years worth or so of data on charter schools, people are finding that they're really not doing much better than regular public schools. A few are, quite a few of them are worse. Many of them are no different. We have the most decentralized and inequitable system of any developed country, you know, compared to Finland especially, but centralization can also lead to loss of local control and flexibility, and that's something that I don't think, that would be a very difficult trade-off. We learned that school board members can be proactive in reaching out to legislators about local need. Part of the purpose of this conference is to help us form those relationships so that we can speak up. You know, when we know that there's some funding issue coming up, we can speak up and be heard by our legislators. Some of the people we spoke to at this conference were able to give us specific examples of how building those relationships has brought federal money to their districts locally. That's a pretty important thing. It also brought home to us what great resources both the NSBA and the IASB are. Our local Illinois people were there as well, helping to organize events for, you know, for all the Illinois board members who were there. We do use a lot of resources from the IASB. There's more there that we can be using. And at the top left there, you see our entire Illinois contingent. There were about 12 of us, I think, and that was the day we went to Capitol Hill. And at the bottom right there, it's awfully dark, but that's Mr. Simic standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial. So on the final day, I had not been to Washington, D.C. before, so on our way to the Finnish embassy, we took a detour so that I could see the Lincoln Memorial. So anyway, all in all, a tremendously interesting conference, extremely invigorating and really thought-provoking. Talked about a lot of issues that, you know, we get down in the weeds sometimes, and we aren't always looking at the higher level, and I think that this was a really good way to kind of refocus on education, which is, you know, it's kind of what we do. So any questions from board members?
Board members, questions or comments? Well, I'm thrilled that you got to do this. Mike's been talking about this for a long time, and I think anytime we can see what's going on in a larger arena, as you did, and get involved, it can only benefit the district. So, Mike, do you have a few words to say?
Sure. One of the things that the board charged me with in coming here was to challenge the board as well to learn together and learn from each other. And that's been a great experience for me. And one of the things that was of interest was, hey, what did your former board do? And one of the practices that they had was to go to the FRN conference. And the school board president, Mark Katz, asked him, I said, all right, you volunteer, he's a 22-year board member. He said, all right, you do all sorts of stuff with the Optimist Club, with school board, and you're a business person. And he said, if you take one thing and if you encourage one thing, it should be the FRN conference. Because if I had to take every other thing that I do away, the last thing that would remain the most important thing would be the FRN conference. I learn the most, it's the most challenging, and it's the most valuable. You should take your board and see what they think. A couple things that I think people can agree on is that the federal government should not be mandating things that they don't pay for, as known as unfunded mandates. And another thing that we should all agree upon if we're in this room is that public schools are important. And if one of the things that you learn at this conference is if you are not at the table, you are on the table. And public school needs advocates. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Snoblin for taking 5 days away from her family, 3 of them unpaid, because she took time off of work to do this as well. And it's a lot of time to learn, it's a lot of investment, and it's very challenging. One of the things that is particularly important related to the unfunded mandates for this district is when the federal government mandates something, you say, okay, well, it's a mandate, it's a nuisance, it's a lot of work for you. It's actually a shifting of a responsibility from Washington to pay for it to local taxpayers. And what that looks like locally is $5,000 per student per year that they are mandating that they're not paying for. And where does that come from? In this district, almost entirely from our local taxpayers. So when they say unfunded mandates, this is not an insignificant thing. So that dollar amount is $4.5 million just in the last 5 years for this district. But we're also in this community paying for District 67, and that amount is $7.7 million in the last 5 years. That's not including other things that they've mandated in recent weeks and months, as a matter of fact, to expand our responsibilities from 8 till 3, from 3 until who knows how long. And these things are one of the things that the School Board Association are opposing, because they're saying, look, you're beginning to mandate things from a department level that should be coming from Congress. And that's one example among many. So I really appreciate the opportunity to go. Sending our elected officials is very different than sending lobbyists or other people. People in Washington listen because each of our elected officials are sent by our community. And it's a very different reception that you have when you go in that capacity.
I really hope that our district will continue sending board members to attend this conference, because part of the value of it is that continuity. You start to develop those relationships. If it becomes an event and information that board members share from one term to the next, I think it could be really valuable. I also wanted to talk a little about networking. Mike mentioned Mark Katz from his former school district, and Mr. Katz was kind enough to meet with us one morning and talk to us about board oversight. What does that mean? What's our responsibility in regard to the audit? What's our responsibility in terms of the bills? And anytime you have a person who's been on a school board for 22 years, that person's going to have a lot of insight. So that was really valuable too. We made a lot of connections and met a lot of people who we'll stay in touch with, because there's a lot of value in that. Also, people from elsewhere in the state of Illinois, it's just remarkable how different some of the challenges are. We met someone from Noble, Illinois, who comes from a school district of 381 students, and they're considering merging with another district because they are not sure that they can afford to keep their school open, which would, of course, create busing situations where students in a rural area would be going a long way. So, all across the state, we have different problems, but we still have a lot in common. So it was a really good experience.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for taking this on, being the first, and to report back as well as you did. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have our Board Education Committee, and I'm going to turn it back over to Nikki again.
I actually had to miss part of the meeting. I was going to ask Monty if he would be so kind as to report.
The Board of the Education Committee met last Wednesday. Nikki and myself as the board members and 2 community representatives and some members of administration. We discussed, following on our theme here, the Federal Common Core and how that's going to affect what we're doing in the classrooms going forward in the future. Also talked about some interesting education that our teachers have been going through and some experiments with a flipped classroom and how that's affecting. I think we're going to have some presentation on the flipped classroom coming up, and that's something we're going to be scheduling in a future board meeting. So I'll leave that. But the majority of the meeting focusing on revised and updated 2013 vision, goals, and objectives for our district. Interestingly, those objectives were formed after some discussions with District 67, and so there's much more sync now between the elementary school district and the high school district in terms of content and common language in terms of putting together vision, goals, and objectives. The emphasis this year will be to convert those objectives to something as specific, measurable, achievable, sort of using the SMART goals, time-bound, and to make those much more measurable. So we'll be seeing that evolve as the year goes on, and when we get into 2013, 2014, I think we'll have a much better set of goals cascaded down from our mission to our vision, to the goals, to objectives that are very measurable. And we're looking forward to see that happen here in the school.
Thank you, Monty. Is there another meeting scheduled at this time?
The next meeting is scheduled for the first week in April. Don't recall the date, but it's, I believe, the first Wednesday in April.
Thank you very much. Board Finance and Operations, Mr. Block or Mr. Scribner?
The Finance and Operations Committee has not met since our last board meeting, and unfortunately our chairman is not here, so I'm not aware of a scheduled future meeting. I don't know whether either of you all are, but I don't think one has been scheduled. Okay.
All right, that'll be forthcoming. Thank you, Mr. Block. There are no liaison reports. And so, moving on, our first action item this evening is the approval of replacement lease for passenger vans. Mr. Albus?
Thank you. The district leases 4 activity buses to assist with after-school and weekend transportation for a multitude of groups. The lease on 3 of those vehicles is up this coming July. In your packet tonight is a proposal from Midwest Transit Equipment to replace those 3 vehicles. The replacement vehicles would be new 2013 Chevrolet Starcraft 14-passenger buses. The specifications for the vehicles are also in your packet. The annual lease payment would increase by $108 per unit, and the lease includes the graphics, the lettering, the initial safety lane approval, the original license and title fees, and delivery and pickup of the old vehicles as well. The vehicles have a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, pardon me, and so we are really only putting in gas and oil. Lease programs are very popular with districts like us that really don't have a fleet maintenance program. These vehicles tend to have very little downtime and have been very reliable. Midwest has been a very good company to deal with, so we'd recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Albus. Is there a motion to approve the replacement lease for 3 by 14 passenger vans?
I'll move that Lake Forest High School District 115 Board of Education approve the replacement lease for 3 14-passenger vans.
Is there a second?
Second.
Board members, do you have any questions or discussion at this time? All
Alan,
right.
can you talk a little bit about what consideration you may have given to purchasing the vans at the end of their lease and how the cost may have differed?
Sure. To buy a van like this new is about $45,000, and so you can go through an exercise of how long you might assume to keep it, what the maintenance costs would be, because once you're out of warranty, say if we were to keep it 5 years, we're likely to replace a set of tires and a set of brakes. And then look at what the residual value of that would be. And we could probably save a couple $1,000s per vehicle by buying them outright, but then you have the cost. Again, anything happens outside of warranty, we're not really equipped to fix that. We would send that out. And with buses, every 6 months, you're sending them through a safety lane. That's why the lease programs tend to be very popular with small and mid-sized school districts. And I've worked in both environments. I've worked in districts where we've had transportation terminals and we've bought vehicles like this. But I think the lease program is more appropriate for our size.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of reimbursement resolution. Mr. Albus?
Thank you. At the January board meeting, the administration outlined a capital projects plan to address several large infrastructure replacement improvements. The projects would be funded through the issuance of what are called general obligation bonds, or GO bonds, and those bonds would be repaid over a 10-year period from existing revenue streams. This is very different than the 2006 referendum, which added a debt schedule onto the tax liabilities. This would not. In order to include, though, any costs incurred between now and the time we would submit the issuance of the bonds for your consideration, it's important to pass what's called a reimbursement resolution. And so that's what's before you tonight. Please be aware that passing the resolution does not obligate the board to do a funding issuance. Really, at this point, it's simply a proactive step to maintain options going forward.
All right, is there a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Board members, any questions or discussion at this time?
Ellen, this is just a placeholder, isn't it?
That's correct. Also, I should point out, there's an Exhibit A in the resolution that identifies the projects that we're talking about.
Any other questions? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the approval of construction management contract. And before Mr. Albus does this, I just want to say that I will be recusing myself from this discussion or vote tonight. I did that in 2006. While I have no financial relationship to any of the companies being discussed, there is a distant familial relationship, and so I'm going to avoid the appearance of any inappropriate involvement and just recuse myself. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Albus.
Thank you. The East Campus track is approximately 16 years old, and it's past its typical life span. Its replacement will need to be addressed, if not now, certainly in the next few years. From a staff perspective, there are numerous advantages to consider a track replacement this summer. Those include implementing the design improvements identified during the Diamond Campaign Initiative, which include an improved running surface, an improved corner turn radius, because this design, even though you can't tell because we don't have it overlaid, is wider and has wider turns than our existing track. And also, we'd benefit from a more efficient venue due to the addition of 2 additional lanes. This would be an 8-lane track. And that's significant in our case because East Campus, we don't have lights. We will probably never have lights because of the neighborhood proximity. So we're always battling sunlight in the spring. And Tim Burkhalter told me that we're the only school with a 6-lane track that does not have lights in our conference. So it is an issue, and 8 lanes does improve the venue considerably. Another benefit right now is we're still in a very favorable construction environment. We had a meeting several weeks ago, and Pepper Construction informed us that they're advising clients to anticipate cost increases of 3 to 5% in each of the next several years. At that same meeting, Mark Joliker, who's in attendance tonight, advised us that their firm is advising clients to project 4% annual increases. And the third point I'd like to make is that we're still in a very favorable rate environment. The project would be dispersed over a 10 years through the issuance of the GO bonds. So this is one of the projects that we just talked about with the reimbursement resolution. And the bonds would be paid out of existing revenue streams. But according to Liz Hennessy, our advisor for William Blair, current rates are at or near historic lows. On the screen is a drawing of the proposed track replacement. It is substantially the same track design that was discussed last spring with the following adjustments. The existing storage building that was below the bleachers on the west end, which is where the arrow is right now, our current thinking is to leave that in place and refurbish it, re-side it and re-roof it. We think we can do that economically, and at least in the short term, we see that as a very good solution. If down the road we were ever to put in an artificial turf field, then that space would have to be relocated. When we were looking at this project last spring, and this was designated to be an artificial turf field, the discus and the shot put were going to be relocated to the front lawn. With this staying as a natural grass field, then they were being moved back in this rendering. The other thing that you can't really tell from this drawing is by doing a track only, the stormwater requirements have been recalculated, and that's changing some of the design documents a bit. Now we're a year further than last year. Last year, when Pepper estimated the cost for us and we went out to bid, they were within $20,000 on what I think was about a $1.6 million project. So they have a pretty good process that they go through to estimate cost. But we already have a design in place. And in order to obtain updated cost figures, we should go out to rebid. For that to happen, though, the revised drawings must be finalized and a bid package assembled. I'm recommending that the board approve the attached construction management contract with Pepper Construction to coordinate the bidding of the drawings as prepared by Perkins Will, and to act as construction manager if the project is ultimately approved. Pepper Construction is very familiar with this project, the East Campus site, and the building requirements of both the city and the county. The attached contract is the same contract utilized for the referendum project and adjusted for the specifics of this project. That was at Bill Bennett's suggestion, and that was because that contract in 2006 was vetted pretty extensively by our attorneys at the time. The structure and the wording were reviewed by legal counsel back in 2006. This project was reviewed extensively last spring. The changes I've highlighted for you tonight are relatively minor. Nonetheless, representatives from Perkins Will, the team that designed the track that you see on the screen, are here to respond to any questions you may have. Additionally, Bill Teton from Binen is here and can address the differences in the various track surfaces. One of the things that we're requesting is in the bid specs that we ask for prices on 3 different type of surfaces. And I didn't bring them up, but I have samples over at my desk. And they each have their benefits and their pros and cons, and he can address that. But it allows us to make a more informed decision by just soliciting what the prices on those would be at this time. The project calendar calls for the bid in early March, and we would bring the results to you in April. That's sufficient time, if the recommendation is to move forward, then to stage the project, start construction at the end of school, and complete construction around, I want to say, mid-September, early to mid-September. So if you have any questions at this time, we'd be happy to take them.
I do have one
Any board
question,
members?
Alan, it's okay. On the drawing there, you show the stormwater detention pond to the east of the facility, and I guess conceptually I understood the need for that when we were talking about a synthetic turf field and a greatly increased square footage of non-permeable surface. Now that we're talking about just a track, yeah, Mark, if you want to address that would be great. Do we still need that pond and, you know, the dollars associated with it, or?
Sure. The basin that's being referred to is an existing basin, and so we're not adding this basin. The benefit to not doing the synthetic turf at this time and doing the new calculations that Mr. Albus referred to is that the capacity of the existing basin allows the track to empty right into it.
So we don't
And-
have to put any more money into?
That's correct.
Okay, fine. That was fine.
It
Because
does
that
not
was not an
preclu-
insignificant expense, as I
Correct, and it
remember.
does not preclude you from adding the additional subsurface detention in the future if you so choose.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Other questions, board members?
Alan, you mentioned that when Pepper did an estimate of the cost of the project last spring, that they were within $20,000 or so of a $1.6 million, $1.7 million total project. Have they recalibrated their estimates at all? Do we know, are those numbers still holding? Has there been inflation in the costs or reductions as a result of the scaled-down project? that
Well,
they
there's
anticipate?
a number of things. Yes, they have recalibrated those, but not to the extent that they had done this last spring. If you remember, we went through a lot of iterations last spring, and there was a lot of drill down, more than you would normally do on a project like this prior to a bid. So yes, they have updated those, because there are changes in the stormwater management. There are changes in some of the location of things. I would say, at least what they've told me, is we're probably within $100,000 of last year's numbers, and then we'll see where everything falls. But some of that's driven by what track surface we would pick as well. But we're still relatively the same cost going forward.
And what you're asking us to do tonight is approve the engagement of Pepper as the construction management. It is not a commitment to go forward with this project. It will be dependent on how those bids come in, whether we go forward with it or not.
Right, it would be engaging Pepper and issuing the bid, finishing the drawings and issuing the bid documents and actually obtaining prices. But you're right, it is not a commitment to proceed with the project.
Along that line, Alan, the contractor we're being asked to vote on tonight, is that a phased contract? In other words, if we decide not to go forward, the fees are graduated in conjunction with the different phases of the project?
It would be for the costs incurred, but if it's not spelled out in there to our comfort level, we have a very good working relationship. We'll get a side letter to that agreement. In other words, we only did the bidding phase, yes, because it is all based on the contracts that are let.
And the contract is clear on that, or does that require a letter on the side?
The contracts, the pricing is all based on costs incurred based on the contracts, and the pricing, the 3% in there, is based on the contracts that are let. So if no contracts are let, there's no cost for that, but there would be some staff costs to assemble and coordinate the bid.
Any other questions for Mr. Albus or Mr. Joliker?
Thank you.
All right, great job, gentlemen. Then I would ask for a motion to approve the construction management contract.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
I will recuse myself. Thank you. Motion passes. Next is the approval of the auditor renewal. Mr. Albus? No? Ms. Hermes?
Good evening. Before you today, we do have a recommendation for an independent auditor renewal. We just recently concluded a one-year contract with Miller Cooper and Company. When we take a look at that relationship, just a reminder, we do this as a shared service initiative with District 67. We believe that the firm has a clear understanding of what the relationship is between the two districts and also exactly how shared services works. Just a reminder, these are two separate districts financially on the books, separate AFRs, separate budgets, etc. The principals at Miller Cooper, we believe, have an outstanding reputation. They're involved in their local organizations at the state and at the regional levels. They're on-site teams, so these are the groups of individuals that we get to, let's just call it, visit us. They come in May and June for several weeks, and then, of course, they're back for quite some time in the fall. Historically, they maintain a really nice mix. So typically, they would have some repeat auditors come out, but also mix in some new auditors every single time the team comes out. So you have new perspectives on every single on-site team. We periodically go out and we do benchmark what other districts are paying for auditing services and what is expected from that particular audit. So we believe that the prices that we have are fairly competitive. And then different this year, I would also like to point out that in accordance with best practice, our partner would be scheduled to be changed if we did renew this contract. So if you recall, the partner does have the final review of our audit and typically is one of the individuals that does come out and meet with the board to talk about the audit, not only the process, but also the results. They also discuss the internal controls. They have presented here at meetings in the past as well. So our partner would change in accordance with best practice going forward. Miller Cooper did provide to us a 1-year and a 3-year renewal option. I've included both of them in your packet. It's our recommendation that we renew with Miller Cooper for 3 years. There's a great deal of coordination and I want to say teaching, but understanding of the organization, rebuilding all of your charts, your assets, your disposals when you bring in a new auditing firm. So continuity to some extent is very efficient and important. I'd be happy to entertain any questions the board may have.
Board members?
How long have they been our auditors now?
I believe we had an initial 3-year contract and a 1-year renewal. Wait, hold on, wait. We might have had another one in there in between. They were not the auditors when I arrived, so that was 06, 07. So they did come in after that. It might have been 07, 08, so maybe there was a double renewal.
So it's a 4-5-year relationship now?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jennifer, you didn't provide us any of the comparative information that you say you got. Can you give me some idea of the range?
It's all over the map a little bit. Everyone has the same standard set, but I would say it's within a very similar, probably, $5,000 or $7,000 range. There's a difference even between 67 and 115, depending on how much federal funding that you receive, whether or not you're required to provide a single audit. 67 right now, our federal funding has fallen below that threshold. Therefore, we don't need to provide that single audit, so our audit fees are less. Districts that do need to complete a single audit are a little bit higher. Everybody's relatively, I would say, in that $25,000 to $35,000 range. There are some, what I would call low audit fees out there, but you're typically not getting probably as thorough, but also the amount of reporting and assistance that we would get. So I think we've provided that, not this past time here, but maybe the last time that we did a renewal, either last year or the year prior.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, usually it's done informally, Alan, and I see these surveys go out usually annually from other business managers, kind of what are you paying for services?
Other questions?
As a member of the Finance Committee, I can say that all of our dealings with the firm they have represented themselves as a very professional organization.
Thank you, John. Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer. Then may I have a motion to approve the auditor renewal?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Block?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on, we have the approval of the Human Resources Report. Ms. Knight.
Good evening. Hi. As you can see in our report, we do have some of our kind of usual business. We had a few retirements, a few changeovers as some of our non-certified staff have moved on to other positions, and we've had new people come in to replace them. What is not on the report, however, is we have started our hiring process for next fall. Both our guidance and our math departments actually today have done a final screening for each position over 400 applications. So they may have their I's crossed at home, but they have gone through between the leadership and some department members. Each department has looked through all of those applications, and we do hope to start our interview process before the month is out. We are excited to go through this process as it not only reminds us of kind of why we went into teaching. You see all the bright-eyed candidates come in, but it also allows us to re-examine what we're truly looking for in our colleagues. So we also, this past weekend, had 30 of our faculty, both again department leaders and faculty who volunteered their time to go to the NWPA job fair, at which we, across the different departments, saw over 1,000 candidates. So we have gotten a pretty good sense of what's out there, and there is a rich pool of candidates out there. We're excited. As Mr. Simic mentioned, we do have our Tri-District Institute Day this Friday. We're looking forward to hosting it at the high school, as I do not believe he mentioned. We are also looking forward to hearing him speak along with Dr. Jean Sophie in the morning. So that will be an opportunity for us all to kind of look at all three districts. Where are we going together, and have some conversation around it. The final piece I wanted to mention is something that you've heard me mention in the past few months, really over the course of the past 12 months, capturing kids' hearts. We have had APT volunteer to sponsor another training for our faculty this spring in April. We're looking forward to it, and even better, it will be another tri-district experience. 65 is going to join us and District 67 at the table. So really looking forward to it. We've had some great opportunities to not only build bridges with 67, but with our other our other feeder district as well. So thank you, and a special thanks to APT on that. It's something that they have been really a partner with us along the way.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Then may I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mr. Block?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have our consent agenda. Board members, is there any item you would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. The consent agenda tonight consists of the approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statement, the approval of minutes from a regular meeting of January 8th, 2013, minutes of executive session January 8, 2013, the release of executive session minutes November 2011 through December 2012, and the disposal of audio recordings from June 2011. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Block?
Aye.
Mr. Bergner?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. There were 3 FOIA requests that we took care of. One was from a Mr. Pat O'Brien, CL Graphics, and 2 from Nancy Thorner. Announcements. Friday, February 15th is Institute Day, no school. Monday, February 18th, President's Day, no school. Wednesday, February 20th, late start day, classes begin at 9:50 a.m. Wednesday, March 6th, late start day, classes begin at 9:50 a.m. Wednesday, March 6th through Saturday, March 9th is talent show performances, a big show. Tuesday, March 12th will be our next Board of Education meeting here in the boardroom. And just as a reminder, on Wednesday, March 13th, the Lake Division of IASB will be holding their spring dinner meeting with presentation. Pre-meeting, just so you know, there will be a briefing for school board candidates. At 5 o'clock, there will be a briefing for school board candidates. This session will give potential first-time board members an overview of their roles and responsibilities and an idea of what to expect if they are successful in the April election. I will be attending this dinner. If any other board members are interested, please contact Eileen. And if any school board candidates are interested, please contact Eileen Fowler at 604-7420, or you can contact me.
That is another group that I think we really need to start getting involved with. One of the board members we met in Washington is from Buffalo Grove, and he was talking about how important those Lake Division meetings are, so I will contact you or Eileen. I'd like to go.
I used to go to these all the time. I thought they were very interesting. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.